Hey everyone, today I'm making these easy lunch bag pockets. And I know there's hundreds of different ways to do it and people do it all the time. I just thought I would share how I done it, maybe give you some more ideas. But so I took this is actually linen that I rust dyed, stamped it, put a little piece there. This is a smaller lunch bag. So this one has 1, 2, 3, and then a really small one down here, which I think I'll change that on the next one because it really doesn't have a purpose. It's too small on this little lunch bag. So you have 1, 2, 3, and then when you glue it to your page, you would have 4. Like if you just glued it on the 3 sides and let this open. So that's the baby one. These are the normal ones. Look, this is stencil that I put on that same rust-dyed linen. This is the linen. And I rust-dyed it. And then I stenciled the sunflower. Isn't that pretty? And then here is another piece that I just stamped. Fall is in the air. And this one I liked, but it has one, you can see the little layers in here. It has 1, 2. It has 3 pockets in the side of this one. I mean, they're thin, so they're not, I don't know, I wouldn't call it really workable, but you can see there's 1, 2. I think it would be hard to mess with 3. And then there's a bigger one down here. That's 4. And then there's 5. And then when you glued it to the page, you would have 6. And I'm not going to show you this one because this was a lot of sewing. Stop and start, because you don't want to sew all these layers together. So like I sewed a little piece, I undid the whole thing, cut the sides out, like I undid all of this, push these out, cut out the sides, sewed around where I knew I was going to leave an opening. So I sewed there before I ever folded it down. It was just, to me, it was just too complicated. I wouldn't do it again. But I'm just showing you the ones that I've made as ideas for the fronts, because we can use this same design on the one that I am going to show you today. And this one, again, I messed it up, but there's 1, 2, and here's where I messed up. I put the other pocket on this side. I don't know why. So there's 3 and 4. So there's 4 pockets on this one, and that's the one I want us to do today. And this little pocket here isn't that deep, but because this is fairly long, you can put a good sized tag in it. I was going to find a bigger tag. Here's the one I made with you wouldn't want one that big, but, well, I'm not doing a very good job of showing you, am I? So here's a normal size tag. This is a Windy Rooster tag. And you can see that it fits in there nicely. And then you just have a little bit that sticks up, and then you would have another tag behind. But there is a way that we could make this a little deeper if you want to, and we'll try to work that out today and see if it works. Okay, so what I started with was a normal lunch bag from Walmart. It measures about 11 inches tall, 5 1/4 wide, and I don't know if they measure it with this out or not, but they're 11 inches tall, folded like this. So the first thing that I did was I folded this down and tucked it into here. That way I knew where I was going to be decorating as the center. That way where you want to center your, if you do the cloth piece or if you're doing stamping. And there's that little navy hand. So if we wanted to make this pocket deeper, at this point, I would cut right across here, because I think that would be better than having the side pocket. I don't know. Well, we could still have, no, you couldn't have the side pocket because this would lead into the side. So I guess you would decide, do you want a side pocket or do you want this pocket to be deeper? And I think I'm going to go with the side as I've done before. So I'll have one at the bottom, one at the top, or two at the top, I guess, and then one behind. So to do this, first thing I did was I glued the sides together, just down that crease. I'm going to do the same on this side and just glue all of that together. So tucking that down, and I just folded it down where it sets flush with where it bends, like that. And then I just took my stamps, and I only used 2 stamps. One of them was this diamond tread, and I just took different colors. And I started with the lightest, which was the yellow. This way you kind of, if you want to get some blending happening into your colors, it's best to start with the lightest color. So I did yellow, and then I went over that in just spots with orange. If I hit some of the yellow, I was okay with it being, you know, blended together. Then I took a little bit of this claret red and just kind of went around like that. And I didn't worry about it being a constant stamp. I like the faded, the more worn look, you know, with it not being stamped very well. I liked that. So that worked for me. And then I took my script stamp. It's just unlegible, but it's just like cursive writing. And I took some of my brown and just random stamped, kind of haphazard like that. And then I took my piece like this, which is going to cover up some of it, so it doesn't, you know, doesn't matter how you stamp, really. That's what I mean. It's, you know, we're going to cover some of it anyway. And I stamped whatever I wanted to stamp on this. And then I sew around it before I glue it down. Maybe I'll do this pumpkin. And I'm not a good stamper, so, you know, don't want to take your tips from me. But so what I did was I just went over the pumpkin part with orange. Didn't worry about if I got the leaves, because most of your stays on stamps come with these little things, and they're for, you know, precise work. Like if we want to take off where I just put that red, you just go over that like that. I just dabbed it right onto my cloth, so that wasn't very smart. But anyway, so this is the pumpkin, and I'm just going over it like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the claret and just kind of highlight in areas, not all of it, but just spots. I'm going to put a little bit of that red to make my pumpkin kind of pop a little better. Then I'm going to go ahead and clean off my leaf again. And I'm going to take my green and go over the stem. I'm going to just stamp it onto this fabric. I just kind of push it, make sure the color gets good and transferred. And it didn't. It did this to me before. I think I take too long because this is kind of sticky. So it doesn't, I don't know if I'm just taking too long and it dries, you know what I mean? Because the stamp is sticky. So we're going to try it again. And it doesn't matter if I get it good and lined up because it really didn't stamp that well anyway. You're not going to be able to see it, I don't think. That's better. You can tell definitely it's a pumpkin. All right. So what else do I want to do? I think I want to put a smaller pumpkin too. Something like this. Yeah, let's do that. Again, this is a new stamp. So it's probably going to dry fairly quickly. And then I'm just going to try to hurry. Isn't that pretty? 2 little pumpkins. Maybe I'll do the fall is in the air. Fall is in the air. Isn't that pretty? And I'm going to sew around it, and then I'm going to glue it right there. I don't know if I have another small piece of material to put right here. I've got to locate one. This one isn't rust-dyed, but I still think it'll look good there. It's got a little paint on it, a little something to make it look nice and grungy. So I think I will just stamp this design on it. I think I'll do the brown again. It's called ganache. Be straight or perfect or anything. It's just a little bit of design to have up there. I made this little mushroom today out of a sticker and some of the Mod Podge dimensional glaze or glue, whatever it is. I like it pretty good, but it's going to have some touch up. Isn't that cute? That would look good hanging from something like this. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew around both pieces because I'm not going to sew them into my bag. On my bag, the only odd sewing I'm going to have to do is on this side over here, where I'm going to have my pockets on this side. I'm going to sew this top piece, and then I'm going to cut my thread, put this down in here, and I'm going to sew across this, up, and across the top. And you can kind of see that on this one. So I go over all 3 sides. The 3 sides that I'm not going to put a pocket. The pocket, you want to sew it only on the top layer. And I don't guess you would really have to sew it under this flap. You could probably just do the 2 sides. But I liked having this down, not gluing it, to have it sewed down. I thought it worked a little better. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to sew any of the bottom. I'm only going to sew my cloth. And I'll be right back. Okay, I have all my pieces sewn. And I wanted to show you a step that I don't know that I really said very clearly when I was sewing. And again, you don't have to sew. You can glue this down and make your sew lines, mark it on there. I thought about doing that with one, but I just haven't done it yet. So what I was saying, you have your bag folded up. When you start sewing, you're going to unfold this. You've got your crease here. You're going to unfold it and sew from the crease down, just with it open like this, and then cut your string, and you're going to fold it down, hold that open, sew across here, all the pieces together, sew across here, up the side, and across the top. And I would take you to my sewing machine, but everything has to move. It's not where I can just turn the camera and you can see it. But you can see on the back of my bag that I've done 3. So this pocket up here is going to be a good size pocket. This one's going to be a small pocket. Or, like I said, you could cut this here and make that pocket deeper and, you know, a little bigger, which, you know, might be a good idea too. That way you could actually sew all the way around this if you wanted to. Just cut this little crease in here. But just for the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to glue my flap up. This is where your little bag folds normally. And then where it's got that little thing, you can, you know, at the bottom where the seam is, you can glue that if you want to. I'm putting cloth over mine, so I don't really know why I did that, other than I just think it would look better than if it was poking out. So now I'm going to glue this down, and I don't get very heavy-handed with my glue. I just put a little bit on this linen because I don't want it to soak through. I mean, I'm sure it's going to anyway because it's very thin, but I don't want it so heavy that it looks completely smashed down, and I don't completely glue it either. I just put little dabs, you know, little squiggle lines like this, because I don't mind if mine stands up a little bit. I kind of like the look of that more so than it being totally flat. That's, you know, totally up to you. My piece isn't even straight, and I like that. I like that part of it hangs off the edge. And also, I just did different kinds of crazy stitching in there. None of that is necessary. It's just what I like. So now what I'm going to do, and I probably should have done before I glued that down, but I forgot, is I'm going to cut, sorry, up this side. Just barely cut. And the bottom piece should be more out than your top pieces. Just that's how it naturally seems to fold. So I'm just barely cutting that because I don't want to cut into my stitches. I'm just trying to cut an opening back up. And really, you don't even have to do that because you already have your pocket here. See, that's your pocket. So you wouldn't even have to cut other than wanting this at the bottom. You cut for that piece. And honestly, I think I'm going to skip that this time. I'm going to glue what I just done. I bet you think, what kind of tutorial? I know, I'm a mess. I don't understand most of my tutorials myself. But I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to make a pocket down there. I'm going to leave this as it is. I could, again, before I glued it up, I could have cut along there. But see, you have one. And if you cut the side of this, you could have another one. But I think I'm going to leave it just like it is. I like this big pocket here. I like that. That's a nice big pocket. So you still have 3 pockets. I know I started out saying I was going to have 4. But I really think that I like this way best. I'm going to glue this little piece. And you'll understand as you do your own bag what I just glued. But see, I just glued that back, and you have a really nice big pocket. You could actually do a hidden pocket that way. You know, if you wanted to put it all the way in there, no one could see what you had. But I like it. I like the big pocket on the side. You have one in the front, and then the way you glue it down, you'll have one, this whole back piece. You could have a really big one. But like I say, if you wanted this piece down here, you just trim off that back piece, which again, I started to, and then I glued it back up. So I know this was kind of a haphazard kind of tutorial, but it's just an idea. Just kind of see where I was going with that. And I'm going to glue this down. I didn't sew this one on. You could sew it on. I did sew it on my first one. I sewed it onto the flat before I glued my flap down. But I did notice that as I was putting this tag in, it would kind of get hung on the stitches. So I decided I would just sew around the fabric instead of sewing it to this flap. But there it is. Isn't it cute? I know it's nothing special, but it really is cute. I wish, you know, let's do one that's not sewn. Can we do one really quick that's not sewn? Okay, so we're going to fold it down. Here's our bag. We're folding it down. Before we do that, I'm sorry, I've already messed up. We're going to glue in here. But before I glue this flap up, I wonder about us cutting across here to make a bigger pocket. So now, see, this pocket would open all the way. But here's something I didn't think about. These are the where your bottom of your bag folds, so you would have to snip that too. That might not be the best. Maybe I should try this stuff out before I start doing my tutorial. What do you think? Yeah. Then you could make that pocket deeper, but I don't know if I even like that. I think that's kind of, I guess it's okay. I like that okay. So you see what I did? I just cut along that. I'm going to try doing the faux stitches. And then I will only glue. See, that's going to be our pocket. It'll be nice and deep. I'm going to only glue across here. And on this side, because the other side's going to be open. We're going to leave it as our pocket. Normally, last time I sewed this piece here. Now we're going to glue it. Glue that down. And then I'm going to fix this bottom. You know, these little lunch bags aren't always glued the best. So now we have a pocket here and a deeper pocket. I'm going to glue up these sides. So you have your big pocket here, a deeper pocket here, and your third pocket be back here. And like I said, if you want a pocket in the bottom rather than the deep, you could always cut the side. I don't know though. I didn't like the way that fit because of that bottom. So really, I love that that one's deeper. I do like that we did that. I think that's definitely the way to go. Cut that where that's deeper. Then you have the big one here on the side, and then you have the one on the back. Yeah, I think I like that a whole lot. So I know this was kind of not a very good tutorial, but I think you saw exactly what I was doing. So now if we wanted to just take a pen, just a black pen, really. And then I also have some stamps that look like sewing, but you could do something, you know, like crazy sewing. Like I would actually really do, because I do sew like this. Something like that. Kind of hard to do. I should have flattened that before I started trying to draw on it. And then, you know, go ahead and put your fabric pieces down, however you're going to do them. And you don't have to sew anything. You can, you know, you could put stickers on here. You could put rub-on transfers. You could put fabric. I mean, fall fabric. Wouldn't that be pretty? This isn't really, I don't know if you'd call this fall, but something like this would look pretty. Let's do that. And that's so pretty if you just put a little label or maybe a piece of doily or something. What I have around here on my desk, but we could maybe, you know, just put a little piece of something like that on there. And none of, I mean, you wouldn't have to sew it all. This could be just like something that would be like that. You don't have to sew it all. You just glue this stuff down. Maybe put an enamel dot right there. I don't have any handy, but, and then take another piece. I would even use the same fabric or different fabrics. Use a muslin at the top or something like that, you know. I do like this fabric though. Another thing that would be pretty is like the, see, that would be pretty, maybe not that long. That would be pretty is the napkin that we did last video where we did the Mod Podge. See, now I would sew that with my sewing machine. I wouldn't sew it to this, but I mean, you could even stamp. Let's see if it'll stamp. Let's see, let's use the zigzag. I don't know that that looks the best. Got more on my fingers than I got on my cloth, but I think you see where I'm going. You know, I've kind of rent this piece of material anyway. Let's draw on it and see how that comes out. You just use, I guess you'd probably want to use a marker, but I'm wondering. I think with a little practice, I can make it not look so bad. What do you think? I mean, it doesn't look the best, but I mean, it would definitely be something you'd want to try, trial and error, try to get it to look a little better, but a little bit better. But you see what I'm saying? You know, stamp your bag and just, you know, be experimental with your linens and rust and tea and all the things if you like the grungy. If you don't, use beautiful laces and pretty fabrics and, you know, but anyway, I just thought that was something fun that we could do with the lunch bags. Again, it's probably already been done. I'm not really sure. But you see how much deeper that pocket is once we cut that, obviously, as opposed to this. You know, you can see the mushroom here. It goes all the way down in. So I do think I like that the best. Cutting that, that'll be a deeper pocket. You have your side pocket here, and then you have your, as you glue it down, you'll have your big pocket in the back. And I think that I would probably just leave the sides. I know that on the first one I did cut that. And I actually think the deal was I cut this before I glued it up, which would definitely work the best. So before you glue it down, here's your bag like this. You would just cut this bottom piece right here, just the front side, just a sliver. And then you would have your opening to do the side, and then you would just glue all of this like we did before, all the way down. You could, because that's split now, see, you could glue that as well. And then still fold it. But you wouldn't want to cut this because then you would run into this pocket. So you would either do the side or make a deeper pocket in the front, whichever you think you would like the best. I think I like the deeper pocket in the front, the one on the side, and then a big one in the back. Let me know what you think. Are you going to try these, or you just think that was really a hot freaking mess? I I don't know. I always like try different things, and I probably should have perfected it a little better before I started videotaping. But to be honest, I don't just sit normally and mass make a whole bunch of things. 3, that's good for me because I probably won't make any more. I get bored very easily, and by the time I really learn how to do it, I don't want to do it anymore. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I hope this gave you some ideas. Maybe inspired you in some crazy way. Thank you guys for watching. God bless, and I will see you next time. Bye.